Can you tell us the NBA is reacting to some of these player concerns about the restart?
Well, Greeny, the NBA has been very busy, obviously, working on this, but they have allowed a void to exist. Both the union and the league. It's now been 11 and 12 days since they had their votes. We still do not have the announcement of a protocol. We still do not have any sort of announcement on what the league would do in Orlando to allow the players to have a social voice. We have vague references, but no announcement. And Kyrie and the group that he has been building have come into that void. And I was pretty surprised yesterday that the NBA didn't have an announcement, or at least an announcement that there was going to be an announcement. Because in the past they have done this. They have worked together on this. Specifically when the national anthem protests were hitting the NFL, the union and players got together and announced some initiatives, and they haven't done that. And so they have allowed essentially a third party here to rise up, and it is now becoming not just a distraction, but a real issue for them to grapple with, in addition to all the economic and safety concerns heading into that bubble.
Jay, you sent me an interesting note on how the situation in baseball might actually play a role in all of this. I'd love you to share that thought.
Yeah, the NBA is assembling the plane after they've already jumped off the cliff. And I think we're seeing this in real time. And within the black community, this narrative is out there about no distractions, no distractions. We don't want any distractions. And one of the things I said yesterday on the show, Greeny, was that if baseball were to play, that will still be a distraction that should play into the decision of what NBA players choose to do. Well, baseball doesn't have a season, and now you have a league that is majority black. And Kyrie alluded to this the other day. Regardless of whether you think it's right or wrong, this is the opinion of the coalition and how they're thinking about this to a degree. You're then putting a lot of black players in the position is, do they want to provide entertainment and have that narrative out there about no distractions? So I think that puts way more pressure and a lot more weight on the shoulders of a lot of players who are already in between with their decision.
Fascinating way of looking at it, and we'll see if it does wind up playing into their decision. Quickly, Windy, while I have you, what are your thoughts on, as we see several NFL players yesterday testing positive for coronavirus, what is the impact of that around the sports landscape?
1 week from today, Greeny, the NBA is going to begin starting testing players to get them set up for the bubble. They want to eradicate the virus before the bubble starts. And considering what we've seen in colleges, considering what we've seen the NFL and MLS player, at least one, you have to assume that NBA players are going to test positive. And yet here we are 1 week away. We do not have a protocol for what to do. Adam Silver last night saying that this may not be for everybody is a bit of a shift in rhetoric. They acknowledge that this is going to be very difficult, and it's getting more difficult by the day.
There's no question about it. And Jay Will, what are you hearing on that front from people you've talked to? The coronavirus piece of this has been talked about less, understandably so, in the last few weeks, but it remains obviously a significant concern for anyone who is planning on going down there. What part of that discussion are you having?
Well, it's a massive concern. Obviously, I think a lot of people just reacted to the social injustice aspect of this yesterday because that was a statement that came out today. But don't be remiss to think that the pandemic is not a major part of this discussion as well. We've seen an uptick over the last couple of days. And, I know that different narratives are flying out there about, oh, we have more testing, even though the data is proving that we haven't had more testing. And I think a lot of guys are really uneasy about everything, Greeny. A lot of guys don't know all the details because there is a lot of rhetoric and there are different extremes on both sides that are pushing different agendas. So it's challenging for guys to have accessibility to the correct to make an informed decision.
So what is your sense, Wendy, of how it will go? I guess I want to ask you if you think that the NBA's restart plan is in real jeopardy here.
I don't think it's in jeopardy because I think it's ultimately so much money and so much influence, and the majority of players still feel that way. But the union and the NBA need to move forward. They have to give information, and specifically, they have to reach out and begin to announce what they intend to do to make players feel like they can use their platforms in Orlando. Damian Lillard said it. I think a lot of people feel that way, but we need to hear some of the details of how, and I say that recognizing how complicated all of this is.